The aroma of burning food filled the air, smoke billowing from the oven as I frantically tried to salvage what was left of my meticulously planned dinner. My friends were due to arrive any minute, and what was supposed to be a festive evening was quickly turning into a culinary catastrophe. "Damn it, Megan," I muttered to myself, fanning the smoke with a dish towel. The fire alarm blared, adding to the chaos. I sprinted to the nearest window, throwing it open to let out the smoke, my mind racing. How could I have let this happen? Everything had been going so well until I got distracted by my phone, responding to texts and completely losing track of time. The doorbell rang, and my heart sank. I glanced at the charred remains of what was once a beautiful roast chicken, now reduced to a blackened, unrecognizable mass. With no time to think, I pulled the chicken from the oven, tossed it into the sink, and turned on the water. The sizzle of water hitting hot metal was almost as loud as the fire alarm, but I ignored it, rushing to the door. "Hey, Megan!" My friend Lucy greeted me with a cheerful smile, but her expression quickly turned to concern as she noticed the smoke and the blaring alarm. "What happened?" I had a little accident," I said, forcing a smile. "Come in, make yourself at home. Just give me a second to fix this." Lucy stepped inside, followed by our other friends, Mark and Rachel, who looked equally concerned. I dashed back to the kitchen, finally managing to silence the fire alarm and open more windows to clear the air. The damage was done, though. The kitchen was a mess, and dinner was a disaster. Mark peered over my shoulder, his eyebrows raised. "Need some help?" I sighed, feeling a mixture of embarrassment and frustration. "I think it's beyond help. I tried to make a roast chicken, but I got distracted and, well, you can see what happened." Rachel chuckled, trying to lighten the mood. "Hey, it's okay. We've all had kitchen disasters. Why don't we order pizza and call it a night?" I nodded, grateful for their understanding. "Pizza sounds like a great idea. I'm so sorry, guys. I wanted tonight to be special." Lucy put a reassuring hand on my shoulder. "It's not about the food, Megan. We're here to spend time together. Don't stress about it." As we settled down with our hastily ordered pizza, I couldn't shake the feeling of disappointment. I had wanted to impress my friends with a homemade meal, to show them I could host a perfect dinner party. Instead, I had shown them my lack of culinary skills in the most spectacular way possible. After my friends left that evening, I sat alone in my kitchen, staring at the remnants of my failed attempt. It was clear I needed help if I ever wanted to cook a decent meal. Maybe it was time to take those cooking classes I had been considering. Little did I know, this decision would lead me to an unexpected and life-changing encounter. The next morning, the smell of burnt chicken still lingered in my apartment, a grim reminder of my disastrous dinner attempt. Determined not to let another cooking catastrophe ruin my confidence, I pulled out my laptop and began searching for local cooking classes. It didn't take long to find a promising option. "Culinary Basics for Beginners," the advertisement read. The class was taught by a local chef named Josh Anderson, who boasted impressive credentials and rave reviews from past students. The first class was that very evening, and without hesitation I signed up. That evening I arrived at the culinary school, a mixture of excitement and nervousness swirling in my stomach. The school was located in a charming old building, with a modern kitchen set up inside. As I walked in, I was greeted by the sight of stainless steel countertops, gleaming pots and pans, and the comforting aroma of freshly baked bread. "Welcome to Culinary Basics," a warm voice called out. I turned to see a tall, broad-shouldered man with a friendly smile approaching me. "I'm Josh, your instructor." "Hi, I'm Megan," I replied, shaking his hand. His grip was firm, his hand slightly calloused from years of working in the kitchen. There was something instantly reassuring about him, and I felt my nerves ease a bit. "Glad to have you here, Megan," Josh said. "Let's get you set up with an apron, and we'll get started." As the other students arrived, Josh introduced himself to each one, making everyone feel welcome. His charisma was undeniable, and it was clear he had a passion for teaching. He began the class with an overview of basic kitchen safety and knife skills, demonstrating with practiced ease. "Cooking is about confidence and creativity," Josh explained as he showed us how to properly chop vegetables. "Don't be afraid to make mistakes. That's how you learn." His words resonated with me, and I found myself becoming more engaged with each passing minute. We were soon divided into pairs to practice our chopping skills. My partner was a middle-aged woman named Linda, who shared my nervousness but was equally determined to improve her cooking. Josh moved around the room, offering tips and encouragement. When he reached our station, he watched as I carefully sliced a carrot. "Nice work, Megan," he said with a smile. "Just remember to keep your fingers tucked in." His presence was calming, and his praise boosted my confidence. By the end of the class, I had learned more in a few hours than I had from countless failed attempts in my kitchen. We wrapped up the evening by preparing a simple but delicious vegetable stir-fry, which we all shared. As I walked out of the culinary school that night, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. Not only had I taken the first step towards becoming a better cook, but I had also met someone who inspired me to embrace the learning process with enthusiasm. Josh's passion for cooking was contagious, and I couldn't wait for the next class. Little did I know, this was just the beginning of a journey that would not only transform my culinary skills, but also lead to something far more unexpected and profound. The first few classes flew by in a whirlwind of new techniques and flavors. However, it wasn't long before I started to feel the weight of my inexperience. While many of my classmates seemed to effortlessly master each skill, I found myself struggling to keep up. One evening, we were tasked with making a basic bechamel sauce. It seemed simple enough: butter, flour, and milk. But as I stirred my saucepan, trying to achieve the perfect consistency, doubt began to creep in. The sauce was lumpy and far from the silky smooth texture Josh had demonstrated. My frustration must have been obvious because Josh approached my station with a reassuring smile. "How's it going over here, Megan?" "Not great," I admitted, holding up my lumpy concoction. "I just can't seem to get it right." He leaned in, examining my sauce. "It looks like your heat might be a bit too high. Let's turn it down a notch and give it another try." Josh's calm demeanor eased my anxiety. He guided me through the process step by step, showing me how to whisk steadily and patiently. With his help, my sauce gradually transformed into a smooth, creamy masterpiece. "See? You got it," Josh said, giving me an encouraging nod. "It's all about patience and practice." "Thanks, Josh," I said, feeling a surge of confidence. "I appreciate your help." "Anytime, Megan," he replied warmly. "That's what I'm here for. Don't hesitate to ask if you need anything." As the weeks went by, my initial struggles became less daunting. I still had my fair share of mishaps: burnt onions, overcooked pasta, and a particularly disastrous attempt at soufflé. But each mistake was a learning opportunity. And Josh was always there, offering guidance and support. One evening, we were learning to fillet fish, a task that required precision and finesse. As I attempted to maneuver the knife, my hands shook slightly, making uneven cuts. My frustration was building when I felt a gentle tap on my shoulder. "Hey, Megan, mind if I show you a trick?" Josh asked, his eyes kind and patient. I nodded, stepping aside as he took the knife. He demonstrated a few swift, precise movements, effortlessly separating the fillet from the bone. "It's all about finding the right angle and using smooth, confident strokes," he explained. Taking a deep breath, I tried again, this time with Josh's guidance. He stood close, his hands gently correcting my grip and motion. Under his careful instruction, my filleting improved significantly. I could feel my confidence growing with each successful cut. "You're doing great," Josh said, his voice filled with genuine praise. "Remember, every chef starts somewhere. It's all about practice and not being afraid to make mistakes." His words resonated deeply. For the first time, I started to believe in my ability to become a competent cook. The fear of failure that had shadowed me for so long began to dissipate, replaced by a newfound sense of determination. Outside of class, I practiced diligently, experimenting with different recipes and techniques. Each success, no matter how small, fueled my passion for cooking. My friends began to notice the change, and our dinners became less about avoiding disaster and more about enjoying good food and good company. Josh's encouragement and personal attention made all the difference. He had a way of making me feel capable, even when I doubted myself. I found myself looking forward to each class, not just for the culinary knowledge, but for the chance to spend time with someone who genuinely cared about my progress. One evening, after a particularly successful class, Josh pulled me aside. "You've come a long way, Megan," he said, his eyes sparkling with pride. "It's been amazing to see your progress." "Thanks to you," I replied, feeling a warmth spread through me. "I couldn't have done it without your help." Josh shook his head. "You've always had it in you. I just helped you find the confidence to believe in yourself." His words stayed with me long after the class ended. As I walked home that night, I realized that my journey in the kitchen was just beginning. With Josh's guidance and my newfound determination, I was ready to tackle any culinary challenge that came my way. And perhaps somewhere along the way, I might discover more than just my love for cooking. With each class, I could feel my confidence growing. The once intimidating kitchen tools and techniques were becoming more familiar, and I started to enjoy the process rather than fear it. It was a gradual change, but the little victories along the way made all the difference. One evening, Josh announced that we would be making risotto, a dish known for its difficulty and the precision required to get it just right. The mere mention of it sent a ripple of apprehension through the class, myself included. But I was determined to tackle this challenge head-on. Josh began with a demonstration, showing us the importance of toasting the rice, slowly adding the broth, and continuously stirring to achieve the perfect creamy texture. As I watched him, I took mental notes, hoping to replicate his effortless technique. When it was my turn, I approached my station with a mixture of excitement and nerves. I measured out the arborio rice and carefully toasted it, just as Josh had shown us. As I started adding the broth, ladle by ladle, I kept stirring, trying to maintain a steady rhythm. Josh walked around the room checking on everyone's progress. When he reached my station, I held my breath, hoping for some sign of approval. He leaned in, peering into my pot, and then gave me an encouraging nod. "Looking good, Megan. Keep it up." Those simple words filled me with a sense of pride. I continued stirring, watching as the rice absorbed the liquid and transformed into a creamy, luscious mixture. When I finally reached the point of adding the finishing touches, grated Parmesan and a pat of butter, I couldn't help but smile at the sight and smell of my creation. Josh called for everyone to bring their dishes to the front for a taste test. I carried my pot of risotto, feeling a mixture of anticipation and anxiety. As Josh sampled each dish offering feedback and pointers, I nervously awaited my turn. When he reached my risotto, he took a spoonful, tasting it thoughtfully. After a moment, he looked up and smiled. "Excellent work, Megan. The texture is spot on and the flavor is well balanced. You've nailed it." The praise sent a wave of elation through me. "Thank you, Josh," I said, beaming with pride. "I couldn't have done it without your help." He shook his head. "You've put in the effort and dedication, Megan. You should be proud of yourself." That night I walked home with a spring in my step, replaying Josh's words in my mind. It wasn't just about the risotto. It was about the validation of my hard work and the progress I had made. Each success, no matter how small, reinforced my belief in my abilities. In the next class, we moved on to more complex dishes, and I continued to apply the skills and techniques I had learned. Whether it was perfectly searing a piece of salmon or creating a delicate crème brûlée, I approached each task with newfound confidence and enthusiasm. Josh's praise became a constant source of motivation. He had a way of making every achievement feel significant, and his encouragement pushed me to keep improving. My classmates also noticed the change in me, and we often exchanged tips and celebrated each other's successes. One evening, Josh announced that we would be having a friendly cooking competition. Each student would prepare a dish of their choice, using the techniques we had learned. The thought of competing was nerve-wracking, but it was also an opportunity to showcase how far I had come. I decided to make a dish that had always intimidated me: chicken piccata. The combination of tender chicken, a tangy lemon caper sauce, and perfectly cooked pasta seemed like the perfect challenge. I spent the entire day preparing and practicing the recipe multiple times until I felt confident. When the day of the competition arrived, I poured my heart into the dish. As I plated the chicken piccata, I felt a sense of accomplishment, regardless of the outcome. When it was my turn to present to the judges, including Josh, I took a deep breath and hoped for the best. After tasting my dish, Josh looked at me with a proud smile. "Megan, this is fantastic. The chicken is perfectly cooked and the sauce is delicious. You've truly outdone yourself." Hearing those words was the culmination of all the hard work and dedication I had put into these classes. I realized that my journey wasn't just about learning to cook. It was about discovering my capabilities and the joy that comes from pursuing a passion. As the competition ended and the winners were announced, I felt a deep sense of satisfaction. I had come a long way from the girl who burned a simple roast chicken. With Josh's guidance and determination, I transformed not only my cooking skills, but also my confidence and self-belief. And as I looked forward to the classes ahead, I knew that this was only the beginning of my culinary adventure. After each class, I found myself lingering longer, cleaning up my station slowly, savoring the atmosphere of the now quiet kitchen. More often than not, Josh would be there, tidying up or preparing for the next class. It became a comforting routine, a way to extend the time spent learning and practicing in a place that had become a sanctuary of sorts. One evening, after the last student had left, Josh approached me as I was packing up my things. "Hey, Megan, would you like to stay and practice a bit more? I have some extra ingredients, and it might be fun to try a new recipe together." I looked up, pleasantly surprised by the invitation. "I'd love to," I replied, a smile spreading across my face. We set to work, choosing a challenging dish that I had been eager to try: homemade ravioli. As we kneaded the dough and prepared the filling, our conversation flowed easily. Josh shared stories about his early days as a chef, the struggles he faced, and the triumphs that fueled his passion. "You know," he said, rolling out the dough with practiced ease, "I wasn't always confident in the kitchen. There were times I thought about giving up, but I kept pushing myself to improve." I nodded, relating to his journey. "I can understand that. I used to be terrified of cooking. I always felt like I was one mistake away from disaster." Josh smiled, his eyes meeting mine. "And now look at you. You're making incredible progress. It's all about perseverance." As we assembled the ravioli, filling each delicate pocket with a savory mixture of ricotta and spinach, I shared more about my own life. I told him about my job, my friends, and the night that had led me to his class. He listened intently, his genuine interest making me feel comfortable and valued. "Cooking has always been a way for me to connect with people," Josh said, as he carefully sealed the edges of the ravioli. "It's not just about the food, it's about the experiences and memories we create around the table." I couldn't agree more. The hours we spent together in the kitchen were some of the most fulfilling I had ever experienced. We laughed, shared stories, and bonded over our mutual love for cooking. The more time I spent with Josh, the more I admired his dedication and warmth. One evening, as we worked on perfecting a classic French dish, coq au vin, Josh paused and looked at me thoughtfully. "Megan, have you ever thought about what cooking means to you, beyond just making meals?" I considered his question, reflecting on the journey I had embarked on. "It's become more than just a skill," I said slowly. "It's a way to express myself, to challenge myself, and to connect with others. It's given me a sense of confidence I never knew I had." Josh nodded, a satisfied smile playing on his lips. "That's exactly what it's about. Cooking is an art, a form of expression, and you're doing an amazing job at it." His words filled me with a warmth that extended beyond the confines of the kitchen. It was in these moments that I realized our connection was growing deeper, rooted in our shared experiences and the mutual respect we had developed for each other. As the weeks went by, our post-class practice sessions became a regular occurrence. We experimented with new recipes, tackled complex techniques, and even created our culinary masterpieces. The kitchen, once a place of anxiety for me, had transformed into a haven of creativity and joy. Through our conversations, I learned about Josh's dreams and aspirations, his travels, and the influences that shaped his culinary style. He, in turn, listened as I opened up about my hopes for the future and the challenges I faced in my personal life. One evening, after a particularly successful practice session, we sat down to enjoy the meal we had prepared together. As we savored the flavors and toasted our achievements, I couldn't help but feel a profound sense of gratitude. Cooking had brought us together, and through it, we had forged a bond that transcended the classroom. Looking across the table at Josh, I realized that this journey was about more than just learning to cook. It was about discovering a new part of myself, building meaningful connections, and embracing the unexpected paths that life had to offer. As I took another bite of our delicious creation, I knew that this was just the beginning of a deeper, more fulfilling relationship. One that would continue to grow both inside and outside the kitchen. The invitation came unexpectedly, just as we were wrapping up a particularly challenging class. Josh approached me with a hint of nervousness, which was unusual for him. "Megan, I was wondering if you'd like to join me for a private cooking session this weekend. We could have dinner together, just the two of us. My heart skipped a beat at the suggestion. It felt different, more personal. I'd love to, I replied, trying to hide my excitement. Saturday evening arrived, and I found myself standing outside Josh's apartment, holding a bottle of wine and feeling a flutter of nervous anticipation. When he opened the door, his warm smile put me at ease. "Come in, Megan," he said, gesturing for me to enter. His apartment was cozy and inviting, with the scent of fresh herbs and spices filling the air. The kitchen, of course, was the heart of the home, and I could tell he had prepared everything meticulously for our evening. "What's on the menu?" I asked, eager to dive into our culinary adventure. "I thought we could make a classic Italian dinner," Josh replied. "Homemade pasta with a rich, creamy Alfredo sauce, and for dessert, a light and airy tiramisu." We started with the pasta, mixing flour and eggs to create the dough. As we kneaded and rolled it out, our hands occasionally brushed against each other, sending a thrill up my spine. The atmosphere was different from our usual classes. More intimate, more charged with unspoken emotions. As we worked side by side, our conversation flowed effortlessly. Josh shared stories about his time studying in Italy, the people he met, and the dishes that inspired him. I found myself hanging on to his every word, captivated by his passion and the sparkle in his eyes as he spoke. When it came time to make the Alfredo sauce, we stood close together, stirring the cream and cheese until it melted into a silky, decadent mixture. The proximity made me acutely aware of his presence, and I could feel the first stirrings of something more than friendship. "So, Megan," Josh said softly, his eyes meeting mine, "what made you decide to take up cooking?" I paused, feeling a bit vulnerable. I wanted to prove to myself that I could do it, that I wasn't destined to burn everything I touched, I said with a laugh. But more than that, I think I was searching for something, confidence, creativity, a way to connect with others. Josh nodded, his gaze intense. "And have you found what you were looking for?" "Yes," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "I think I have." There was a moment of silence, charged with an unspoken understanding. As we plated the pasta and sat down to enjoy our meal, the air between us was filled with a new kind of tension, one that was both thrilling and a little terrifying. The dinner was exquisite. The pasta was perfectly cooked, the sauce rich and flavorful, and the wine complemented it beautifully. As we ate, we continued to talk, our conversation growing deeper and more personal. We shared our dreams, our fears, and our hopes for the future. When dessert time came, we worked together to layer the tiramisu, our hands occasionally brushing and lingering longer than necessary. The playful banter and laughter that accompanied our efforts felt natural, like we had known each other for much longer than a few months. As we finished assembling the tiramisu and placed it in the fridge to set, Josh turned to me, his expression serious, yet tender. "Megan, I have to admit something," he said, taking a step closer. "I've enjoyed getting to know you, both in class and outside of it. And tonight has been special." My heart raced as I looked up at him. "I felt the same way," I confessed, feeling a mixture of exhilaration and nervousness. Josh took my hand, his touch gentle but firm. "I know this might seem sudden, but I feel a connection with you, something I've been wanting to explore." He leaned in, and I felt my breath catch. As his lips met mine, a spark ignited between us, the culmination of all the shared moments, the laughter, and the quiet understanding we had built. The kiss was soft and tentative at first, but it deepened as we gave in to the feelings that had been simmering beneath the surface. When we finally pulled apart, our foreheads resting against each other, I felt a sense of rightness. This was the beginning of something new, something beautiful. "Stay for a while?" Josh asked, his voice low and filled with promise. I nodded, smiling. "I'd love to." As we settled back into the kitchen, preparing to enjoy our tiramisu, I knew that this was more than just a culinary journey. It was the start of a new chapter in both our lives, one filled with the promise of love and the shared joy of cooking together. Chapter 7. Unexpected Challenges. Our blossoming romance seemed perfect, but life has a way of throwing curveballs when you least expect them. The first sign of trouble appeared one evening after class. As I was packing up my things, A woman walked into the kitchen. She was strikingly beautiful, with a confident air that immediately put me on edge. "Josh, there you are!" she called out, her voice filled with a familiarity that made my stomach knot. Josh looked up, his expression a mix of surprise and mild discomfort. "Megan, this is Claire," he said, introducing her reluctantly. "Claire, this is Megan." Claire flashed me a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Nice to meet you, Megan," she said before turning her attention back to Josh. "Can we talk?" I felt like an intruder in their conversation, and as they walked a few steps away, speaking in hushed tones, I couldn't help but feel a pang of jealousy. Who was she, and what was her connection to Josh? Over the next few days, Claire's presence became a constant thorn in my side. She showed up in the kitchen more often, always with some excuse to see Josh. They would talk, sometimes laughing together, and I couldn't help but feel a growing sense of insecurity. One evening, after a particularly tense class where Claire had lingered, I found myself alone with Josh. The air was thick with unspoken words, and I couldn't hold back any longer. "Josh, who is Claire?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Josh sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Claire is my ex-girlfriend. We broke up a while ago, but she's been trying to reconnect recently." My heart sank. "And how do you feel about that?" He looked at me, his eyes sincere. "Honestly, it's complicated. We had a lot of history, but that chapter is over. I'm not interested in getting back together with her." Despite his words, I couldn't shake the feeling of doubt. "But she's always around, and it seems like you still care about her." Josh stepped closer, taking my hands in his. "Megan, I care about you. Claire is part of my past, but you're my present, and hopefully, my future." His words were reassuring, but the seed of doubt had been planted. Over the next few weeks, I found myself second-guessing everything. Every time I saw Josh and Claire together, even if it was just a brief conversation, my heart ached with jealousy. One evening, after a particularly difficult day, Josh pulled me aside. "Megan, we need to talk," he said, his tone serious. We sat down in the quiet kitchen, and Josh looked at me with a mix of determination and concern. "I've noticed you've been distant lately. What's going on?" I took a deep breath, deciding to be honest. "I'm struggling, Josh. Seeing you with Claire makes me feel insecure. I can't help but wonder if there's still something between you two." Josh's eyes softened. "Megan, I understand why you feel that way, but I need you to trust me. My relationship with Claire is over. She's trying to come back into my life, but I don't want that. I want to be with you." I looked down, feeling a mix of relief and shame. "I'm sorry, Josh. I shouldn't let my jealousy get the better of me." He lifted my chin, forcing me to meet his gaze. "No, I'm glad you're being honest. This relationship means a lot to me, and I want us to be able to talk about these things." The sincerity in his voice melted away my doubts. "I trust you, Josh. I just needed to hear it." He smiled, pulling me into a hug. "Thank you, Megan. I promise you, there's nothing to worry about." As we held each other, I felt the weight of my insecurities lift. The road ahead might have its challenges, but I knew we could face them together. And in that moment, I realized that our relationship had become stronger, forged through honesty and understanding. After our heartfelt conversation, the tension between Josh and me dissolved, and our relationship felt stronger than ever. We decided to channel this newfound energy into a shared passion: cooking. One evening, as we were enjoying a quiet dinner, Josh proposed an idea that would take our relationship to the next level. "Megan, how would you feel about helping me develop a new menu for the restaurant?" he asked, his eyes gleaming with excitement. "I think it could be a great project for us to work on together." The idea thrilled me. "I'd love that, Josh. It sounds like an amazing opportunity." And so we embarked on our new adventure. We began by brainstorming ideas and filling a notebook with sketches and notes about potential dishes. Our goal was to create a menu that was innovative yet accessible, showcasing fresh, seasonal ingredients and bold flavors. The process was intense, but incredibly rewarding. We spent countless hours in the kitchen, experimenting with different recipes and techniques. Our evenings were filled with laughter, taste tests, and the occasional culinary mishap. The more we worked together, the more our bond deepened. We discovered that we complemented each other perfectly. Josh's expertise and creativity paired with my growing skills and fresh perspective. One night, we decided to tackle a particularly challenging dish, duck confit with a cherry reduction. It was a complex recipe that required patience and precision. As we prepped the ingredients, Josh explained each step in detail, guiding me through the process with his usual calm demeanor. "Remember, the key is to render the fat slowly and evenly," he said, his hands expertly handling the duck legs. "It might take a while, but the result is worth it." I nodded, focused on the task at hand. As we worked side by side, our conversation flowed effortlessly. We shared stories, dreams, and aspirations. Our connection grew stronger with each passing moment. As the duck cooked, filling the kitchen with a mouth-watering aroma, Josh turned to me with a thoughtful expression. "You know, Megan, this project has made me realize how much I enjoy working with you, not just as a partner, but as a friend." His words warmed my heart. "I feel the same way, Josh. This experience has brought us closer together, and I'm grateful for that." When the dish was finally ready, we plated it carefully, adding the finishing touches with meticulous attention to detail. As we sat down to taste our creation, the flavors burst in our mouths, a perfect harmony of richness and tanginess. "This is incredible," I said, savoring each bite. "We make a great team." Josh smiled, reaching across the table to squeeze my hand. "We do." Our collaborative efforts didn't go unnoticed. The restaurant staff and regular patrons were impressed with the new menu, and the feedback was overwhelmingly positive. It was a proud moment for both of us, knowing that our hard work and dedication had paid off. As we continued to develop and refine the menu, our relationship flourished. We learned to navigate challenges together, offering support and encouragement when needed. We celebrated our successes and learned from our mistakes, growing not only as chefs, but as individuals. One evening, after a particularly busy day at the restaurant, we found ourselves alone in the kitchen, basking in the glow of our accomplishments. Josh turned to me, his eyes filled with gratitude and affection. "Megan, I couldn't have done this without you. You've become such an important part of my life, both professionally and personally." I smiled, feeling a rush of emotion. "Josh, this journey has been incredible, and I'm so thankful to have you by my side." At that moment, I realized that our relationship had evolved into something truly special. We were not just partners in the kitchen, but in life. The trust and understanding we had built through our shared passion for cooking had laid a strong foundation for our future together. As we stood there, the quiet hum of the kitchen around us, I knew that this was only the beginning of our culinary adventure. With Josh by my side, I felt ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, confident in the strength of our partnership and the love we shared. As we cleaned up, planning our next culinary endeavor, I couldn't help but feel excited for the future, one filled with delicious creations, shared dreams, and the joy of cooking together. As our collaborative project progressed, Josh and I grew more confident in our roles and in each other. The restaurant thrived on the new menu, and the feedback was overwhelmingly positive. However, as with any partnership, it wasn't all smooth sailing. Our first major conflict emerged unexpectedly, shaking the foundation we had worked so hard to build. It started innocuously enough. We were in the middle of finalizing a seasonal special, a delicate herb-crusted lamb with a side of roasted root vegetables. Josh had his vision for the dish, and I had mine. At first, our discussions were polite, but as the hours wore on, our differing opinions clashed more openly. "I think the lamb should be paired with a light mint yogurt sauce," I suggested, trying to keep my tone even. Josh shook his head, clearly frustrated. "Megan, the flavors will clash. A rosemary just would complement the herb crust better." We went back and forth, each of us growing more entrenched in our positions. What started as a professional disagreement soon felt personal, the tension simmering beneath the surface. "Josh, why can't you see my point? The yogurt sauce adds a fresh contrast that the dish needs," I argued, my patience wearing thin. He sighed, his expression hardening. "It's not about seeing your point, Megan. It's about what works best for the dish. I've been doing this for years. Trust me on this one." His words stung, and I could feel my temper rising. "So now my opinion doesn't matter because I'm not as experienced? That's not fair, Josh." The kitchen fell silent, the air thick with unspoken emotions. I could see the hurt in his eyes, mirroring my own. For the first time, I felt a real divide between us, and it scared me. That night, I went home feeling a mix of anger and sadness. Our disagreement had exposed a vulnerability in our relationship, one that I wasn't sure how to mend. The next day at the restaurant was tense, our usual camaraderie replaced by awkward silences and curt exchanges. After a particularly grueling shift, Josh approached me. "Megan, can we talk?" he asked, his voice softer than it had been in days. I nodded, following him to a quiet corner of the restaurant. He took a deep breath, his expression earnest. "I'm sorry about how I handled things. I didn't mean to dismiss your ideas. I was so focused on getting it right that I forgot we're a team." His apology took me by surprise, and I felt a pang of guilt. "I'm sorry too, Josh. I should have been more open to your experience and not taken it so personally. I guess I just wanted to prove myself." Josh smiled, a hint of relief in his eyes. "You don't need to prove anything to me, Megan. You're amazing at what you do. We just need to find a way to balance our ideas." We spent the next hour talking, really talking, about our visions for the dish and how we could incorporate elements of both. It wasn't easy, but through compromise and understanding, we managed to create a version of the lamb dish that satisfied us both. In the end, we decided on a combination. The lamb would be served with rosemary juice, but we added a side of mint yogurt sauce for those who wanted a fresher contrast. It was a solution that honored both our perspectives and showcased our ability to work through differences. That evening, as we cleaned up and prepared to close the restaurant, I felt a renewed sense of partnership with Josh. Our first major conflict had tested us, but it also brought us closer together, teaching us the importance of compromise and communication. Josh walked me to my car, and as we stood under the soft glow of the streetlights, he took my hand. "Thank you for sticking with me through this, Megan. I know it wasn't easy." I squeezed his hand, smiling up at him. "Thank you for listening and for being willing to compromise. I think we're stronger for it." He leaned down, pressing a gentle kiss to my forehead. I couldn't agree more. As I drove home that night, I realized that our relationship had weathered its first real storm. It wouldn't be the last, but knowing that we could navigate these challenges together filled me with hope and confidence for the future. And as I reflected on our journey, I couldn't help but feel grateful for the love and partnership we were building, one dish at a time. The culmination of our journey together arrived with the eagerly anticipated presentation of our new menu at the restaurant. Weeks of hard work, late nights, and shared creativity had led us to this moment. As we put the finishing touches on our dishes, I couldn't help but feel a surge of pride and nervous excitement. The evening of the presentation was a whirlwind of activity. The restaurant buzzed with anticipation as guests filled the dining room, eager to taste our creations. Josh and I stood side by side, ready to introduce each dish and share the inspiration behind our culinary vision. As the first plates emerged from the kitchen, accompanied by Josh's eloquent descriptions and my nervous smiles, I watched as patrons savored each bite. The feedback was immediate and overwhelmingly positive. Diners praised the innovative flavors, the thoughtful pairings, and the overall dining experience we had crafted. Amidst the applause and congratulations, Josh pulled me aside, his eyes shining with pride. "We did it, Megan! Our menu is a hit!" I grinned, feeling a rush of relief and joy. "I can't believe it, we did it!" The success of the evening was more than just professional validation. It was a testament to our partnership, our shared passion, and our growing love for each other. As we celebrated with the restaurant staff and our friends, I knew in my heart that Josh was not only my culinary partner, but also the person I wanted to share my life with. Later that night, after the guests had departed and the kitchen was finally quiet, Josh and I sat together at a corner table. The glow of candles cast soft shadows across his face as he took my hand in his. "Megan, tonight was incredible," he began, his voice filled with sincerity. "But more than that, being with you through this journey has been the highlight of my life." I smiled, feeling a surge of emotion. "Josh, I feel the same way. This experience has shown me how much I love you and how strong we are together." He leaned in, brushing his lips against mine in a gentle kiss. "I love you, Megan, with all my heart." Tears welled up in my eyes as I hugged him tightly. "I love you too, Josh, so much." In that moment, surrounded by the warmth of our shared success and the promise of our future together, I knew that we had found something rare and precious. Our journey had been filled with challenges, doubts, and moments of intense emotion. But through it all, we had emerged stronger and more committed than ever. As we looked ahead to the adventures that awaited us, both in the kitchen and in life, I couldn't help but feel grateful for the love and partnership we had discovered. Together, we had created not just a successful menu, but a foundation for a lifetime of happiness and culinary adventures. As we sat there savoring the quiet moments of togetherness, I knew that this was only the beginning of our story, a story filled with love, passion, and the delicious taste of a future we had built together, one dish at a time.